From the headquarters of Talasio English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. Delcy Rodriguez has said that boats from Guyana backed by ExxonMobil were illegally in Venezuela's waters and not in the region in dispute between the two countries. Rodriguez also says that Venezuela will be sending a letter to the United Nations about what it says is Guyana's incursion and provocation.
This Essequibo territory, I repeat, over which Venezuela has no doubts regarding its ownership, and which was stripped in a barbaric way by the British Empire, has a maritime projection where there is still a dispute to resolve. The incident which took place in the month of December 2018 took place in the legal territory of Venezuela, of undoubtable sovereignty where no type of territorial claim nor controversy exists at all. It's an extremely serious act that took place and which was directly provoked by the government of Guyana. They entered in an unprecedented fashion into the territorial waters of Venezuela.
The Vice President also showed recordings of the exchanges between Venezuelan and ExxonMobil boats, in which they admitted that they were in Venezuelan territory illegally.
On maritime jurisdiction water of Venezuela, no Guyanan maritime water. I need you to understand this one, okay?
Message is well copied. Message is well copied. We have stopped our operation to safeguard our safety and the security of the crew and the vessel. Please be advised, we are starting to alter course to port to exit Venezuelan, what you define as Venezuelan territory.
The state of Sierra, protests and violence continue, with 5 people now dead. An increasing number of attacks and conflicts have hit the region over the last 5 days, including a bomb explosion near a highway. The new Minister of Justice, Sergio Moro, deployed more than 400 police officers. Close to 150 people were arrested. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Mayer, brings us those details.
For the last 6 nights, the northeastern Brazilian state of Ceará has been rocked by dozens of violent acts, including lighting buses on fire, blowing up bombs at bus stations, public buildings being attacked. And as a result, Jair Bolsonaro's federal government has sent in 300 troops from the national security forces to patrol the streets. The problem with this, however, is that the actions that are underway are coordinated from behind bars. Basically, Luis Mauro Albuquerque, who's the newly appointed Secretary of the State Prison System, announced last week that he's going to stop the policy of segregating prisoners according to what drug faction they belong to. Now, the prisoners are upset because they believe this will lead to murders and violence behind bars. And as a result, the 3 largest drug factions in the state pooled their resources together and announced that they're going to create a climate of terror until the government backs off its statements and cancels the policy. So it's hard to understand how putting more police on the streets will solve this situation if it's being commandeered from behind bars. São Paulo, Brian Mir, Telesur.
We thank Brian for that report. The Peruvian Attorney General, Pedro Chavarri, has tendered his resignation. Chavarri resigned during a meeting of head judges from the Attorney General's office. He had previously announced that he would be demitting office in a statement via social media on Monday night. Outside the building, while the meeting was taking place, people gathered to demand a state of emergency be declared at the Attorney General's office. 4 people have died in an Andes mountain avalanche in Peru. The victims were 3 Spanish mountaineers and their Peruvian guides. A 4th person from Spain survived the avalanche and managed to alert local police. Authorities say the group was getting ready to make their way down from the top of the Nevado Mateo mountain when disaster struck. All 4 bodies have been recovered. Social organizations in Bolivia, along with President Evo Morales, have called for unity in order to maintain the current political process in the country. We have more details in this report.
Social organizations have launched campaigns across different regions of the country in support of the re-election of President Evo Morales later this year.
Brothers and sisters, we have to once again defeat the right-wing opposition. That's why we need to be prepared and organized. We need to guarantee an electoral victory for Evo.
The current government, headed by President Evo Morales, has increased our GDP from 9 billion to 40 billion US dollars. After making history like this, the opposition continues to question his administration.
Speaking at a school inauguration in a rural area, President Morales referred to negative comments made by a Brazilian lawmaker against indigenous people.
A Brazilian lawmaker said they will have zero tolerance against indigenous people. He also said that if they want to be indigenous, they should go where Evo Morales lives. Can you imagine that? Here, indigenous people are at the core of our government. It is totally different. It is something historical for us. We should be proud of our historic process.
President Morales highlighted the importance of unity in order to preserve the economic and social programs achieved in the last couple of years.
I want to tell all of you, brothers and sisters, unity will defeat the right-wing opposition. A unified nation will defeat the U.S. empire and the capitalist system. If we are divided, we will be defeated. We will fail.
Bolivia will have primary elections on January 27, so people will choose between the presidential candidates of 9 political parties. Those chosen will then participate in the general elections in October 2019.
6 social leaders have been killed in Colombia since the start of 2019. We have more from our correspondent in Bogota, Paola Fernandez.
6 social leaders were murdered in the first week of 2019. Some of those killings took place in Magdalena, Cauca, and Antioquia. 2 were murdered in Cauca, one of the departments hardest hit by the armed conflict and brutal violence. Anger is also growing in the north of Santander, and not only among social leaders, but among those battling against illegal mining and land rights. As public fury reignites, a call is being made to President Duque to guarantee the security of all social leaders. But another case which has sparked widespread outrage is the murder of Lady Morales, a 25-year-old from the city of Cali in the department of Cauca. She was last seen alive on December 28. Her mutilated, decomposing body has since been found. Her death is believed to have been preceded by torture. This killing is still under investigation. Her family has asked that no impunity is granted in her brutal murder.
And there has been another femicide in Argentina. A 33-year-old policewoman, Giselle Varela, was shot dead by her former lover while she was waiting on a bus in the city of Mar del Plata. The alleged killer, Sergio Cejas, is said to have used the victim's police-issued firearm in the attack. He then fled to Miramar City, where he was detained. Federal police in Chile have raided several Mapuche homes in the country's southern region, arresting 6 residents. Our correspondent in Santiago, Paula Dragnich, brings us more of those details.
The murder of young Mapuche Camilo Catrillanca on November 14th has worsened the country's political crisis. In the last couple of days, there were more forced evictions in different Mapuche territories. Some 70 carabineros and federal police investigators raided several homes in Eracilla, located in Chile's Araucania region. Earlier Monday, they arrested 6 residents. Police General Mauro Victorino was questioned by the Attorney General's office about the murder of Catrillanca. He revealed that he talked to Interior Minister Andres Chadwick to inform him that Catrillanca and several Mapuche members were unarmed and there wasn't a confrontation with police forces. However, the Interior Minister said there was a confrontation in order to justify the attack against the Mapuche community. Social organizations have also demanded Interior Minister Andres Chadwick step down, claiming he is directly responsible for Catrillanca's murder. Mapuches in southern Chile have been demanding the return of their native lands stolen by loggers and the government decades ago. The Piñera administration has increased carabineros' presence and repression against the Mapuche since taking office last March.
Heavily armed Canadian police mobilized against camps in the territory of the Wet'suwet'en. The indigenous community has been engaged in a permanent blockade, trying to prevent a gas pipeline from being built on their territory. Local reports say that up to 13 people were detained. According to the UN Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights, these communities cannot be forcibly removed from their territory. The locals say the pipeline project is a threat to their plants, their animals, and communities in the area. Time now for the first break of this newscast. We'll have more news in a minute. United Nations and the African Union have condemned Monday's coup attempt in Gabon. A government spokesperson said that soldiers entered the national radio station in the capital at around 4 a.m. local time to announce the establishment of a National Council of the Restoration. Security forces later stormed the radio station in Libreville, reportedly making arrests and freeing journalists and technicians who had been forced to help the rebels make their broadcast. All of this happened as President Ali Bongo is in Morocco recovering from a stroke he suffered in October. Gabon is rich in oil and other natural resources, and international companies have been deeply involved in the country for decades. Earlier, I spoke with the journalist and author Ken Silverstein about this topic. Here's what he had to say.
I have never been to Gabon, but I've been all over West Africa. I know the situation in Gabon well, and I know the oil industry well. The key thing here is that, we think about corruption as, these, corrupt African states. But of course, we all know that the people paying off the corrupt African officials are corrupt also. And those tend to be Western oil companies or maybe Chinese or wherever they're from. So the companies will they don't want their executives to go to jail. So they hire intermediaries, middlemen, fixers, whatever you want to call it. These people, they will have them on retainer as consultants, and they'll claim that they're, offering advice. They will be connected in the country in question, in this case in Gabon, but it could be Nigeria or Equatorial Guinea. They have built up relationships, usually by greasing the wheels and lining the pockets of powerful politicians, including presidents. And they pay bribes on behalf of oil companies, and they gain access to rich oil reserves. And the oil companies get rich, the local politicians get rich, and the people suffer. It's pretty easy, really.
And another topic we touched upon was the attitude of France and other Western governments towards Gabon's ruling Bongo family.
It's a disgrace. Look, quickly, Equatorial Guinea, one of the worst places on the planet, worse than Gabon. The Obiang family has been in charge since 1979. ExxonMobil and Chevron and other U.S. companies have major investments there. They have so much influence. This is a tiny little African country. It became the third largest producer of oil in sub-Saharan Africa. Gabon, I think, is fourth. They could make them change if they wanted to, but they don't care. They don't care. They're as dirty as the African politicians who they're paying off. In Gabon, you had French companies. The French treatment of West African people is an international disgrace. The French, I love the way they pretend to be sophisticated and superior. Do you know that for many years, the French governments had pre-signed agreements with African leaders that in the event that they were overthrown, they had in advance letters authorizing the French to intervene to overthrow whoever overthrew them and put them back in power. The Bongos had such a relationship with the French. So who knows what France is up to, but France has run West Africa the way the U.S. has run Latin America. So it's disgusting.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's main opposition party claims it has won the recently held elections. The Union for Democracy and Social Progress has also asked for a meeting between its candidate, Felix Tshisekedi, and the President Joseph Kabila to prepare for what they are calling a peaceful and civilized transition of power. However, the Electoral Commission has rejected the opposition's claims as baseless. Election results were postponed until January 15th. Meanwhile, an elections observer organization has said it has witnessed numerous irregularities at voting centers.
Simon witnessed 52 cases of irregularities we judged to be major, 4 cases of witnesses being refused the signing of the tally, and 20 cases of falsifying of results on the tally. 92% of local centers of compilation of results from the tallies were not posted outside the polling stations. That is very worrying because it's a clear injunction of the law and of the application measures.
I think the least we can do is to denounce the irregularities. Because as an observation mission, what we have said is what we observed based on what was posted from the tallies the observers had access to. At the same time, we are going to respect the law which only authorizes the Congo's National Electoral Commission to publish the results of the votes and the trends. We are not going to publish what we have, but as observers, we have the right and we will denounce it, no matter how we do it.
Madagascar's High Court has declared Andry Rajoelina as the winner of the country's presidential elections. The court confirmed that Rajoelina secured more than 55% of the votes in last month's runoff. His main challenger, Mark Ravalomanana, received only 44%. Ravalomanana has filed a complaint over the runoff results, alleging fraud. South Africa's governing party has celebrated its 100th and 70th anniversary amid concerns over its diminishing popularity. The party, which was formed in 1912, has been in power since the end of apartheid 25 years ago. It has recently come under fire over allegations of corruption and mismanagement of public funds by top officials. Citizens have accused the party of abandoning its original ideals and becoming an elitist organization.
People, they want change, so they must be. He must provide jobs and every opportunities in South Africa. So we can vote for someone who's gonna work hard.
Thousands of Ethiopian pilgrims from all over the country have arrived to the churches of Lalibella's Rock-Hewn to celebrate Orthodox Christmas. These churches are a World Heritage Site where thousands of people gathered after traveling for up to 3 weeks in some cases for the celebration. Orthodox Christians follow the Julian calendar, which celebrates Christmas on January 7th.
The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has a different calendar from the rest of the world. Ethiopia has 13 months in a year, and that's why we celebrate Christmas at this time. We have a different way of counting, which is completely different from Europeans and people from the American continent.
On to some Caribbean news now. The Jamaican government is moving full speed ahead with plans to buy Venezuela's stake in the Petrojam oil refinery, allowing it to start a delayed plan to boost production. Jamaica's Foreign Affairs Minister Kamima Johnson-Smith made the announcement via Twitter. The decision comes nearly 2 years after the partners signed a long-term agreement to spend more than $1 billion to modernize the plant. Venezuela owes 49% of Petrojam through the state-owned PDVSA Caribe, a subsidiary of Petróleos de Venezuela.
Stand divided, we fought once in the diaspora.
And Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, says while the country has fallen on hard times, his government has taken measures to avert an economic crisis. He issued the assurance as he concluded his two-part presentation on the economy.
Egypt raised gasoline and diesel price by 60% as soon as the collapse started in 2014. Qatar raised diesel by 50%. They raised electricity and water rates in the Emirates. They came back here again. Kuwait increased diesel and kerosene prices. Diesel went up by 100%.
On this day in history 60 years ago, Fidel Castro entered Havana for the first time after the triumph of the revolution. He also gave his first speech speaking in front of thousands of Cubans who followed the Freedom Caravan through the main cities of Cuba. Fidel said this was a decisive moment in the revolution, defeating the tyranny of the dictator Fulgencio Batista that had the country under despair, poverty, diseases, and illiteracy.
alumbraba el porvenir y seguir de modo cruel la costumbre del delito.
Time for another very short break, but we will have more news after this. Welcome back. The U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton met with his Turkish counterpart on Tuesday to discuss the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Bolton has said that Turkey must guarantee the safety of its Kurdish allies in Syria as a condition for the U.S. to leave Syria. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has fired back, saying his country doesn't accept the U.S. comments about the Kurds, adding that the U.S.'s conditions are a very serious mistake.
Regarding this matter, Bolton has made a serious mistake, and whoever thinks like this was also made a mistake. It is not possible for us to compromise on this point. Those who are part of the terror corridor in Syria will receive the necessary lesson. There is no single difference between the PKK, YPG, PYD and Daesh.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has arrived in the Chinese capital of Beijing. He is visiting at the invitation of the Chinese President Xi Jinping from January 7th through the 10th. The DPRK leader visited 3 times last year, and his visit may lead to a 4th summit with Xi.
Chairman Kim Jong-un's visit is at the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and President Xi Jinping's invitation. As everybody knows, this visit is part of high-level exchanges as China and North Korea are friendly neighbors, and this is an important part of our tradition of friendship.
And time now for a look at some of the other top stories from around the globe.
A former school janitor in China attacked at least 20 children with a hammer in a primary school in Beijing. 3 among the victims sustained serious injuries. Police arrested the man who reportedly was angry after his work contract was not renewed. Over 60 British members of parliament have called on police to do more to tackle intimidation of politicians and journalists outside of parliament. This comes after an incident when protesters shouted verbal abuse at a prominent pro-EU conservative politician, Anna Soubry, during a live television interview. Metropolitan Police said they were assessing whether any crimes had been committed.
I think it's really important, firstly, to recognise that policing Brexit is a really challenging issue for the police service. We know that it is a contentious issue with opposing views from a number of people. Our role in the police service is to make sure that we facilitate people's right to protest, but do that whilst balancing the needs of everybody, which includes politicians, our own staff, members of the public, and those who wish to protest, so that people can go about their daily business as usual.
Dozens of anti-junta activists have demonstrated in Thailand to call for the military government to honor elections set for February 24th, as rumors abound about another delay. The February date was set after several postponements, but the king has yet to sign a decree allowing the election commission to announce the official date.
And finally, a rare snowfall in Athens, Greece has blanketed the city as the residents deal with sub-freezing temperatures. Most schools around the capital have been closed and railway and bus services were disrupted. Iconic monuments and the city's beaches were covered in snow, a very unusual sight for the coastal city. A cold wave is affecting the entire country as temperatures as low as minus 23 degrees Celsius were recorded in the northern regions. And that is a chilly end to this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourenglish.net. And join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Tell Us Your English. I'm Sony Gray. Thank you for watching.